distinct honor and pleasure to be here. You know, a few years ago, General Mark Welsh, while speaking to a group of Air Force Academy graduates, coined a phrase. Every airman has a story. What's yours? Not too long after that, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, James Roy, challenged the entire Air Force community to open up better lines of communication with our airmen. With that, a group of awesome folks at Insular Turkey came up with the Storytellers initiative. It had basically three goals. One, to motivate. Two, to inspire. And three, to take up that challenge of opening up those lines of communication with our airmen. That's what we want to do today. This is the first ever event of Storytellers here at Seymour Johnson, and we want this to be the first of many. Today you're going to hear 4 amazing stories from some amazing airmen, and I hope what you take from it is that you are not alone if you're going through issues. Reach out, get the help you need. Now with that, I also want to say that we have amazing support staff in the room, just in case it gets a little heavy in here today. We have the folks from the SARC here today. Thank you so much. We have mental health, we have the chaplain, and we have first sergeants in the room. But it doesn't have to be right now, of course. Just know that those folks are always out there for you. I also want to say that this is such an awesome opportunity for everyone in this room. There are some stories that are out there in the crowd that you haven't heard yet. And hopefully this will kind of open the floodgates of reaching out to our airmen and having those better lines of communication. With that, I would like to have you guys just sit back, relax, enjoy the awesome refreshments we have, and let's begin. So it's a funny thing about life. If you don't know who you are and where you want to go and who you want to be, things can get really tough when you're talking about making those life choices. There really isn't a roadmap. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the morning, Senior Airman Alexis from the 4th CBTS.
Good morning. Thank you, Sergeant Eagle, for that introduction. As he stated, I am Senior Airman Allen from the 4th Comptroller Squadron Budget Office, and here's my story. I'm only alive today because a doctor, a chaplain, and a therapist refused to let me die. I have my clinics just in case. I was born August 1st, Charleston, South Carolina, Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. If you're familiar with the area, it's where they send a lot of their traumatic cases, a lot of their neurological cases, a lot of their can't get fixed, quote unquote, in the emergency room type cases. My mom was a severe alcoholic and a drug dependent user for the 9 months she was pregnant with me. So as a result, I was an alcohol and drug dependent baby. I wasn't breathing when I was born, so the doctor merely told her, you can take her with you and she'll die. Or you can leave her and we can do what we can to keep her alive, but we can't promise you anything. So at that moment, I was put in an incubator for about 6 to 9 months, as so it was told to me. Wasn't expected to live. I couldn't function on my own, couldn't breathe on my own. It was merely the procedures that they had to take to make sure they were doing their job. Eventually, I did come out, as you can see, I'm here today. I made it out of that incubator, but I still had, some delayed responses. I still had some stuff, cognitively that hadn't developed yet, a lot of underdeveloped things. So there was still a lot of treatment that I had to go through to get me to where I needed to be able to function on my own. As a result, I lived my life. I eventually relocated to a small town called Pickens, South Carolina. It's much like Goldsboro. It's a family-oriented town. Everyone's either a teacher, a nurse, a doctor, a preacher, and you own everything in the town. I mean, if you're not one of those people, sorry for you, choose a different city. But there wasn't really much to offer me in that city. I remember going through school, and I remember looking at pictures of my family, and I'm like, hey, I don't look like them. Like, I'm going to family reunions, and I'm like, okay, this is the child that they photoshopped into all of the pictures because one of them is not like the other. Like, where did I come from? who did I belong to? My mom, I don't know who she was. She could have been that person getting on the MARTA. She could have been that person getting on the airplane. She could have been that person sitting right next to me, but I had no visual of her. I couldn't connect with her. At that point, I had no identity. It was like I was baby Jane Doe. I didn't know who I was. So therefore, how could I know where I was going? So throughout my life, throughout middle school, I became involved. I became involved in track, marching band, things that would take away from the memories of what I had started to internalize. I became so busy, as we often say, with life, I didn't have to focus on those personal issues. I matriculated through high school. I actually ended up graduating number 3 in a class of 475. But I remember the pre-graduation day like it was yesterday, and my guidance counselor said, people from your neighborhood don't go to college. So what you may need to do is go to tech school, pick up a trade. You'll probably flunk out anyway. Don't even waste our time with trying to figure out, what college to go to, where to apply. And I looked at her and I said, I'll get right on it. Thank you. Unbeknownst to me, I had this hidden talent in dance, one that I had not honed, one that I had not crafted. So when I got a full ride to the University of South Carolina, then Spartanburg, now upstate, which is in the University of South Carolina system, I got a 2-year ride on a cheerleading scholarship. Everything paid for. Where did this come from? I never tapped into it because I never knew that it existed. All I knew that I was a child left in a hospital with no parents, no idea of who I was or where I was to become. So I went to college, and the day, everyone's excited. Oh my God, you graduated high school, My dad didn't graduate high school. My mom, not sure if she graduated high school, not even sure if she even finished middle school for that matter. And now I'm a cheerleader. You should be proud of yourself. But then that time comes where that man that says he's your father looks at you and says, what do you need for school now? All you ever do is ask me for money. What? Who are you? I don't even know who you are. You live 2 miles away from me and I've never seen your face. You're not on my birth certificate. I don't have a relationship with you. So how can you tell me all I ever do is ask you for money? I'm simply telling you, hey, dad, pops, father, dude, guy, whoever you are, I'm going to college. I would think you'd be proud of me, or at least that was a preconceived idea I had in my head. My parents should be proud of me. But instead it made it feel like something was wrong with me. What was wrong with me? Why wasn't anyone proud of my accomplishments? Why wasn't anyone as happy as I was? So I began this internalization thing. I went on through college. I had a lot of good roommates, but they wouldn't know. But I kept a smile on my face. And if everyone knows me, I'm always smiling. Why? Because people don't ask questions. Because then when people ask questions, you have to give answers. And a lot of times, you don't want to talk. You just want to do your job, keep your smile, keep it going. So I made it through college, and I was around 19, and it hit the fan. My sister called me and said, hey, I don't want my kids. I'm coming by your house. I was home for the weekend. I'm dropping them off. And I'm like, wow, okay, so I'm 19. Now I have to choose whether or not I'm going to keep fulfilling my cheerleading scholarship, something that I had worked so hard to attain, or if I want to forgo that and now take care of my twin nephews. Now, everyone knows me. I'm a family-oriented person. You tell me you need something, I'm there within a reasonable amount of time. But it dawned on me that I couldn't allow my nephews to matriculate through the system like I had to matriculate through the system. I had to become the difference in their life. I had to let them know that although they did have a mother figure or a father figure, grandma, grandpa, aunt, sister, brother, their auntie, as they referred to me, was not going to let them down. So my aunt called me back that day and she said, we'll go to court, we'll get joint custody of them. You continue to live the dream that you've been working so hard for. Just because someone else fails to have goals, fails to have morals, fails to have dreams, doesn't mean you have to stop where you are. So as a result, I kept going, and then my senior year of college came around, and it became more stressful on my aunt, and she said, well, I don't want to keep asking you for help. I said, no, this is something I'm going to have to do. That's the day I decided I was going to the Air Force recruiting office, and I was joining the Air Force, because I knew that this was the best way that I could not only take care of Alexis Allen, but now I could take care of my twin nephews. I could provide them with a life, although I may not be there 24/7, I could provide them with something consistent They knew that every January 19th, which just so happens to be their birthday, and the day that I joined the military, I would be there for them. They knew that every Christmas, I would be there for them. Stability, something that I never had in my life. So when I went down to the recruiter's office, she said, I've got one day for you. And I said, well, what's that? January 19th. That's my grandma's birthday, my twin nephew's birthday, and my military anniversary. Kind of coincidence, huh? Kind of personal. So it means something to me. But prior to leaving, I called what then was told to me as my mom. My grandmother hadn't spoken to her in 13 years. She called me and said, here's your mom's phone number. You need to call and make it right. Once again, big question mark. Why am I, as a child, doing what an adult should have done almost 25 years ago? Nevertheless, as always, I did my job. I said, call my mom. I said, hey, I know you don't know me because I don't know you, but I'm going to boot camp. We got one of two things. You can meet me at the airport tomorrow, and we'll take a picture, and we'll keep in contact, or we can live our life as we've done for the past 25 years. And I can pretend you don't exist, and you can pretend I don't exist. But the choice is up to you. So I packed my bags. I'm saying my goodbyes. I had my nice farewell party, my big Air Force cake, my, Air Force napkins and everything. But there was still that piece of me that's like, God, when is my phone gonna ring? Like, oh my God. I leave out of Atlanta at, 11:30. My phone still hasn't rang. My flight departed at 12:30. My phone rang at 12 o'clock. And she said, I'm at the airport. Now, if anyone's ever flown out of Atlanta, it's not just a, hey, let me take my picture and let's go. No, see, what you gotta do is, you gotta get on this MARTA, and then you gotta get on this train and this bus and this railroad and this horse and carriage to get back to the front of the airport. Oh, but by the way, you got 10 minutes because your flight's gonna leave. And then how was I supposed to explain that to my family? I missed my flight to boot camp because I was taking a picture with my mom. They weren't gonna believe me. They didn't even know what she looked like. I could have been making all this stuff up. So I made it back though. I rushed through security because if you don't have a boarding pass, you can't make it through security. Rushed back through security and I said, hey. She said, hey back. I said, this is awkward. This is me in 20 years. Good thing you don't look bad. I looked at her and I said, hey mom. Hey daughter. Took the picture. Now what's funny is she wrote me every week in boot camp for 8.5 weeks. I asked for no phone calls, just letters. Because there was a sense of an emotional attachment to where if she stopped, I'd be okay as long as I hadn't heard her voice. All I had was words. And those words were something that I could internalize. Well, I graduated boot camp, yay, made it through. Didn't have to call the family and say, hey, I got washed back, I'll be here for another 10 weeks. I made it through. I went through tech school and all of that. And then I came to Seymour Johnson. Awesome place, awesome base. Been here almost 5 years, loving every minute of it. No sarcasm. I got here. And then life happened. I've been here for 2 years. In 2012, they said, Senior Airman Allen, you have what's called sinus tachycardia. Has nothing to do with your face, nothing to do with your nose, nothing to do with your allergies. What it is it's a heart condition in where what my heart does at rest, yours does while you're working out. So when your heart rate, gradually goes up to 80, 90, 100 while you're working out, there are times when mine will just flip and it'll go. Now I'm thinking, there's something wrong with me. Well, everyone's always said that there was something wrong. Even the doctor said there was something wrong with me. So maybe there really is something wrong. But I came over it. I overcame it. I went to treatment. I got up to UNC Chapel Hill. The best heart doctors, the best pulmonary specialists, the best cardiologists one could ask for. And we began a treatment plan because I refused to let that disease become who I was. And then life happened again in 2013. Oh, Senior Airman Allen, now you have adult onset asthma. So now I'm like, okay. I've got a heart condition and I've got asthma. You can treat one or the other, but it gets complicated when you try to treat both of them. So either I learn to breathe or I don't. Or I walk around with an oxygen can. And that kind of doesn't look too good, when you're only 26, 27 years old walking around with oxygen. But hey, if that's what I got to do, it's what I got to do. But I made it through. I came through it. And then my mom dropped a bomb on me. December 25th, Christmas Day. Awesome. It was our first Christmas together. I drove into Atlanta. I said, I want to do something we've never done in 27 years. I want to have Christmas with you. And she said, but I have to tell you something. And I'm like, oh crap. She's like, this is like about to be Margot, but you are not the mother. Maybe she's really not my mom. Maybe she was just joking and she just showed up at the right time. But she said, no, I'm HIV positive. I've had it for 26 years. And I'm like, okay. Where do I get tested? Do I go back and say, hey, my mom's HIV positive, because they test for that in the Air Force. And they don't come out with flags and banners and say, hey, you're the winner. This is what you have, congratulations. It's one of those things that I began internalizing and began, like, why did she wait so long? Why me? Why my mom? Now I got to figure out, are we on a timetable? Does she have the medicine? Is she getting proper care? Is she getting the right food? What do I do? Now I've become the protector instead of the protected. And that's how I become the person I am today. But then one day I was in my office, and we just had a change of command, and I had went to go talk to my commander, and he looked at me, and he said, Airman Allen, you have to treat yourself so you can better yourself. You have to take care of you, because if you don't take care of you, no one else will. I know how to do my job. I know how to sit behind a desk. I know how to budget. I know how to analyze. I know how to do this. When it came to the mental, the emotional, and more so the physical, I didn't know how to do that because I was the protectee instead of the protected. So then, that's the day I went to mental health. And I said, I've got problems. Everyone's told me I've got problems, but I don't know what they are. I need help, because if not, I'm gonna have a mental breakdown. Because I internalize a lot of stuff. I never voice, but I needed to get externally out what I had put internally in. And after about 5 or 6 sessions, my therapist came to me, and she said, Airman Allen, and this is a rough spot. She said, you have a form of PTSD. It's called complex PTSD. So once again, I'm like, geez, what can be complex about finance? You might miss a paycheck here and there, but it's really not too traumatic, I know everyone thinks we just sit behind a desk and we wait till the 1st and the 15th to decide who's not going to get paid. But what could be so traumatic about finance? How do you get PTSD? I've never been deployed. I've never been in Iraq. I've never been on the front lines. I've never seen, a dead body. How could this be traumatic? She said, listen to your story. What have you told me about your life? What have you told me about growing up? And I began to recant my story to her, and she said, well, the difference between complex PTSD and regular PTSD is that it's all emotional, and it shows no outward sign. So when you have those emotional flashbacks, where you're flashing back to, the mom, the dad, the lack of having to protect, not having a protector, it creates those instances where it becomes traumatic for you, and you internalize. And that day she said, we have to get to know the person that the disease has, not the disease that the person has. Because at the end of the day, there's still a shell. There's still a person that needs help. And from then on, I went back and, things began to get better. I began to understand why I felt the way I felt. I began to understand why I internalized. And then I understood that life is like a toolbox. As parents, you give your children tools. As aunts, aunties, sisters, brothers, mentors, you give them tools to put in that toolbox so when life happens, they have something to reach out. They have something to grab on, something to, fix that problem when it arises. But my thing was, my toolbox was empty. I had no tools. My mother didn't tell me anything. My father didn't tell me anything. So when life happened, I didn't know how to fix it. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't fix me. But at the end of the day, as long as you have the right tools in your toolbox, it's like a house. You got to start with a sure foundation. You got to have the hammer and the nails. If you don't, when the wind comes, when the rain comes, your house falls over, and you got to start all over. So with that being said, I came up with a motto, and I always kept telling myself, it's my story, but it's not my lifestyle. And the way I live today is that I can, I will, and I'm doing. Thank you so much.